Good afternoon, America. You got James Hayden, Crusader Talk Radio and Podcast, put on by the Sigus Gravis Society. Today is October 27th, 2021. Coming to you in the later afternoon/evening. As always, I want to thank all of our emergency responders for keeping us alive and well when we screw everything up in this world. And I'd like to thank all the soldiers, past, present, and future, that sacrificed their lives, their freedom, their families for our freedom and liberty. And what is liberty? To me, liberty is measured by the estimated risk you're allowed to make for yourself. And if you think of it that way, we're not very free and we're not very liberated here in America. And as always, I'm hoping you're going to help me turn sheeple back into free-thinking people. So there's a lot in the headlines, as you know, or may not know if you're new to the show. I review the headlines, trying to put it all together because there's a bigger picture going on. Just like in a cheesy Disney Star Wars episode, there's a grand specter behind the curtain pulling all the strings. Our freedom, our liberty, and our right to be ourselves is being destroyed, taken, stolen, chained up. So I flip open the news today, and my favorite place to go for news is Fox, though they're not always 100% honest. They're not always doing the right thing, but they are one of the better news agencies. And the big headline story of the day shows what looks like a pair of cops, active investigation. Authorities reveal gun used in the Alec Baldwin shooting. I can't read it word for word, so I'm changing the headline a little bit. I don't want to plagiarize, but the authorities are revealing the gun used in the Alec Baldwin fatal shooting issue. I guess they were making a movie called Rust, and in the process of making the movie or rehearsing the movie, unfortunately, I guess what looked like a beautiful young woman with a tremendous future ahead of her was killed. Now, I never liked Alec Baldwin. He is a narcissistic asshole, through and through. His demeanor, his candor, his ego, his sense of self, everything about him reeks dickhead. But I have to say about him reeks or appears because I don't know the dude. I've never sat down and had a conversation with him, but he seems pretty narcissistic. He had quite the opinions over Trump. He helped spread some of the lies about Trump. But going forward, I don't believe he murdered anybody on purpose. And I imagine that he's having a hard time dealing with this. I would assume that this is difficult and that he is truly sorry and repentant of such an accident. I'm assuming it's an accident. I'm not assuming it's murder. Normally, I would take this opportunity to tarnish Alec Baldwin, but I will, to his credit, state he has to live with an awful lot and some kind of mistake. I don't know if it was his mistake, a technical person or technical assistant's mistake, if it was a stage engineer's mistake. Obviously a mistake happened. Now, the other thing I believe about this is it's being used and exploited. What is it being exploited for, you ask? Well, let's go down through the other headlines that are in tiny letters. It is being used mainly to distract from that dad in Loudoun, Virginia, I believe it is, whose daughter was raped by a transgender female, meaning male to female, in the school's bathroom. Then he tried to bring it up or fight further injustice at a school board meeting, and he ended up getting arrested. The one picture I showed, he had blood coming out of his mouth. It looks like he took an ass kicking. And if that's all true, that's the biggest story in America. because we are being forced to trust transgender people who are doing something that most of us normal heterosexuals, and I will classify us as normal, whether you like it or not, as safe. They want us to believe that these people are safe. Well, there's something irrational about you if you're willing to grow some tits and cut off your pecker. I'm sorry. That's how it is to me, in my mind, and in my opinion. Now, I'm not stating to make anything illegal. If a man wants to do all that to himself, I believe he should have that freedom. But you shouldn't have the ability to force our children to share a bathroom with these people. You shouldn't have to or should not force them down our throats. They are what they are. I am what I am. I'm sure in the circles of life that I swim in, I'm not going to run into any transgender. And I'm sure in the circles they swim in life, they're not going to run into any big-mouthed, opinionated rednecks like myself. So what they're trying to do with this whole Alec Baldwin thing is distract from the heinous mistrust of transgender issues. I find it rather odd that I have a friend who is gay and transgender. It's a woman to a male. And she's always stating how I should never worry about leaving my kids in the hands of gay people or transgender. Well, wait a second. You're trying to tell me that they won't molest or rape children in the same, we'll say, population or percentage as what happens in the rest of society? Personally, I believe that they are at a higher risk of harming our children. Because, I'll be honest, if as a man you look at your penis and want to get rid of it, and you start taking chemicals to grow tits and become more feminine, well, you'll be willing to try anything once. You'll give anything a whirl. You obviously have no fear of consequence. We'll take God out of the issue. The consequence of how all of that affects your body. Let's not forget also the other fact that proves the transgender population to be the most unstable is the rate of suicide amongst them. So, what are these numbers of suicide? According to the Human Rights Campaign, which is hrc.org, I'm going to read directly one of their sentences. Again, this is coming from hrc.org. Their article is, "A new study reveals shocking rates of attempted suicide among transgender." Let's see. So, more than half transgender male teens who participated in the survey reported attempting suicide in their lifetime. So, right there is a 50% attempt. While 29.9% of transgender female teens said they attempted suicide. Among non-binary youth, 41.8% of respondents stated that they attempted suicide at some point in their lives. That's a high rate. They're not even going into the rate of how many were successful. And I don't imagine that number's good. I'm willing to bet 15% to 20%, maybe even up as high as 50% were successful. Of the... You're looking at 30% of one, you're looking at 40% of another, so you're looking at about 60% of the total population attempting suicide. I'm going to have to work those numbers out. I'm trying to do it on the fly. So, like the Brian Laundrie Petito murder case, as awful as that was, again, that was given a huge amount of airtime, a huge amount of internet time, a huge amount of Twitter time, Facebook time. Oh, don't forget it got Dog the Bounty Hunter time. What a dumbass. If his parents are alive, they must watch TV and just cry. Anyways, it's all a big distraction. a huge distraction. Because if we don't have distractions right now, you're going to have to consider the fact that this Christmas, there's not going to be enough presents for every child. I think that's going to be a first time in America. There's not going to be enough food for all of us to eat at the normal rationing that we eat at. That means the amount that we eat, the types of foods that we eat, the quality of food that we eat. Because they've created this issue, there's a lack of truck drivers between forced vaccination, mask laws, and all sorts of horseshit. I mean, really, he's a trucker driving the roads, and my hat's off to truckers. They spend a lot of solitary time that would drive most of us batshit crazy. And they're going to force these guys to get vaxxed if they don't want to. They want to force them to wear masks. Why? They're all alone. They're by themselves. Maybe you should consider there's a reason people aren't trusting the vax. I got vaxxed. 90 days of being ill. And I would say I was almost as ill as if I had COVID. And what happened is they gave me the vaccination. I felt good for a day and a half. And then all of a sudden, my breathing got really heavy. Now, I already had COPD/asthma. I've had asthma since I was a kid. And what this did was activate the asthma. Though I definitely didn't have perfect breathing or perfect lungs, it started making everything worse after a day and a half. And then this exhaustion, this cloud, this heavy blanket of tired exhaustion washed over me. To the point I spent probably 3 weeks in bed almost. You'll see that there's some gaps in my shows. And then from there, I would get migraines and headaches, and I'm still getting the migraines, not as often. And it seems to be I'm winning out over the symptoms, but I got that shot back on May 7th. Are you kidding me? I'm still feeling effects. So I'm wondering, what is the realistic danger of COVID-19? What is the realistic estimated risk, or I should say estimated risk percentage of being vaxxed? What is the risk percentage of not being vaxxed? What is the risk percentage with the mask on and the mask off? I was looking all those numbers up. I found 5 extremely different numbers to all of those questions. So what's going on? Major distractions. You had the Brian Landry, I know it's Laundrie, I believe. So being a redneck New Yorker, which is why I sound so strange, we say laundry. Now you got Alex Baldwin. And what's sad is, like, we all know Alex Baldwin. None of us can name the girl's name. If I don't click into this article, I hate to say I don't know the woman's name, and that does suck. God, a big prayer, a heartfelt, I'm so sorry for you folks, to her family. How it must be to get a phone call and your child is dead from a senseless accident. If we all remember, this is how Brandon Lee died. It seems to be a repeating issue that shouldn't repeat. In some ways, I'm wondering if someone somehow engineers it all to murder somebody. Not saying Alec Baldwin himself, but whoever set up the circumstances. See, when you have a production, whether it's a movie, whether